Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you to our virtual audience this morning. Manuel, I see that you've jumped on with us too. Welcome today. But thank you so much for being with us this morning. We've got a great morning of speaker and just some, I believe, some great inspiration. I've heard from a lot of people that 2024 just really hasn't started the best for them. Okay. And that's disappointing to hear. I've certainly had some struggles that have continued past 2023, and I think all of us maybe have to some degree. But 2024, I think, is going to be a good year. And I think there again, it's just kind of the way that we look at it, right? And the way we prep for it. So I'm just praying that all of you here today have started a good first quarter, and pray for you all that we have a good 2024. And Noble wants to help you with that. Noble wants to provide education, connectivity, community, and support for all of you to have a more successful 2024 and beyond. So let's start off with a word of prayer, may we? Okay. Dear most gracious and heavenly Father, we thank you so much for today, and we just thank you so much for the many blessings that you give us and the opportunities that we have to serve you and to bring more people to attract to the kingdom. We just thank you for the opportunity to sit with a very wise servant of yours today and hear a little bit more about his journey and how his journey has come closer to you and help to draw others to you as well through his talents. We just ask for blessings on all of our families, and we ask blessings upon our country and our health, and we just pray this in your heavenly name. Amen. Amen. So I want to welcome again everybody that's online. Just want to give a little applause and woohoo to Rob Kopp for being a new grandfather to a new granddaughter as of yesterday. So Rob, congratulations for that, and all the others that are going to be joining us today virtually. We just love having you, and I know that audience is just going to keep growing as we open up new locations that we have now in Pittsburgh, shortly to be Cleveland, shortly at the end of this year to add New Jersey. They're going to start having programming too, so we'll be offering more and more programming to folks on some great topics with some great speakers. So we just appreciate everybody on today. One thing I wanted to say, really excited about this too, is that we have a couple people that are very close to Noble, and one is Jeff Elder, who some of you know, and he has his second devotional book out now. Just came out within the last month, and mine arrived just in this last week. So excited about that. But I'm going to want to give this away today to somebody at the end of this morning's program, and so one of you lucky people is going to get this, and so excited about that. But then really excited too about one of our new entrepreneurs in Pittsburgh. His name is Steve Shelton, and he went through and graduated from our Noble Academy program in Pittsburgh. And just this last week, his new book just got published and became available on Amazon. And so I was lucky enough to just get a copy of his that arrived a couple of days ago, and excited about that. So anybody here that has a son or daughter or grandson or daughter or friend that might want to be interested in the trades, okay, which is something that's making a real comeback right now. Steve's whole focus is on trades, okay, and helping young people to get into the trades. And I just think that's very exciting. But hey, he's got a new business. He's got his book out. There's going to be more books and more things that go along with this. But we're very excited about this new entrepreneur who's already killing it in the area. JD Orr, industrial designer, educator, expertise in visualization skills. General Motors, Honda, Opel, Ferrari, Porsche, Procter & Gamble, Little Tikes, Whirlpool, Electrolux, NBBJ Architectural, The Limited, Rafe Corporation. Need I say more? And there are more. committed to inspiring young people to pursue careers in design. Wow. Okay. A student quote, one of his student graduate quote from one of his programs. Dr. Contrast's instruction was instrumental in my accepting a design position with a prominent interior design firm in Washington, D.C. His passion for instructing the next generation of leaders and creatives is unmatched. And that's Hannah Noy out of Sarasota, Florida. I'm sure you remember that young lady.
Great talent.
But do me a favor and let's welcome JD.
Thank you very much, Chaz. Well, let me begin by saying this. Who that guy was, I don't know who he is, but he's going to be arriving very soon. But thank you so much for a very kind introduction. And I'll say this at the very beginning throughout the entire process. What an honor it is to be involved with a group of individuals who have a real heart for the Lord and their passion for work and what they do. And believe me, I'm beyond privileged to be part of the process this morning. And I couldn't wait to get here. Woke up at 4 o'clock, started practicing. Make sure the sketching skills are still good. If you want me to do that, make a mess with a sheet of paper, I'm happy to do that. So thank you very much, Chaz. And very kind of you to ask me to do this. So thank you.
Well, we're excited to have you here. Visualize to realize. Learning from a good teacher explains. Learning from a great teacher inspires. Dare to be great. Tell us a little bit about Dr. Contrast.
Well, that's an excellent question. And I believe that down through the years, I think when I began my career going through school at CCS in Detroit, there was always a passion for giving things back. I came out of Glasgow, Scotland, was born in Europe. And when I came to this nation, I can all still remember, for example, our family, my father came over to the country first, and about a year later, he sent funding back to us in Glasgow to bring us back to the States. And this gives me chills. So forgive me if I break, but I always, everything I do, I remember this moment in my life. Standing in the bow of the ship, the HMS Elizabeth, coming through the Narrows in New York, seeing that Statue of Liberty. All I could tell myself, I just put my hands up and said, this is America. And that moment in time, I realized that I was going to be given an opportunity to do some great things, hopefully in my lifetime. Had I not had the vision, or my father not had the vision to leave Europe, we loved it there. That whole process, I would not be here today. I sincerely believe that. But again, that began the seed of what do I do? Honestly, I can remember I was about 7 years of age. I can remember asking myself, what can I do to make a difference in this nation? What will I do here? I'm an immigrant. Down through the years, I went through school, fortunate to go through school at CCS, had to meet and work with some of the most phenomenal talents in school that I've ever been around. Have you ever heard of Sid Mead? You ever heard of Star Wars? 2001 Space Odyssey? Star Trek? Elysium? He was my drawing and rendering instructor for all 5 years at CCS. I mean, yeah, wow. This man was he was beyond believability. Very humble, low-key man. And in fact, I remember the first day of class, we came into class, Chaz, we're all sitting there, and this little tiny guy comes walking in, and we all stood up in reverence and started to applaud. And the reason we did this is that when I was a kid growing up, I bought one of those books, United States Steel, it was called Manufacturing and Process from the United States Steel by Sid Mead. All the cool stuff. I think, I'd love to be able to do that. So here I am standing in front of my mentor that I've been reading books about for years. We all stood up, and he turned around and went, you see, it's still a small voice. Be seated. You're not in the presence of ability. We're here to develop great things. So from that moment on, pardon the explanation here, but the Dr. Contrast thing just grew out of that whole process down through my years of career activation, working with young people, for example, and watching what they do. Someone in an exposition in Los Angeles, someone walked up and said, you know what? You're a really contrast. You're a big contrast. I said, how do you mean that? He said, well, you're almost a doctor of contrast. You're so different. I said, what do you mean? Ugly? What? What do you mean by different? He said, no, your whole approach is unique. It's not about you. Never has been about you. Chaz and I have talked about this several times. One of the greatest gifts we can have is to get ourselves out of the way and let other people move in. So it's not about, so that whole Dr. Contrast thing, Chaz, came about from the fact that it's a matter about sort of some the nobility here, but it's a giving back. It's being the contrast, what's out there now. What's out there now is me, myself, and I. What we're representing here in this room today is the whole principle of being involved in not only our lives, but passing on that craft to other people's lives and getting out of our way so they can move in. So thank you. That's a terrible explanation. That's how it
No,
happened.
that's pretty good. So your family, you come into the, I didn't know that part.
Really?
Boating right in New York Harbor the way, you know, people did back in those days,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And, so tell us a little bit more about your family, about your upbringing.
No, upbringing is very unique in Glasgow, for example, a very large family. In fact, I remember being called to the headmaster's office because I told my family when everybody had to stand up after we had recited the Pledge of Allegiance. At that time was the ode to William Wallace. And we did that every morning. We got Scots we hey, we're Wallace bled. Scots we hey, we'll help you bed. And then we went through that whole process. God save the Queen, all that stuff. Anyway, it was interesting that when we went through that whole process, you have to stand up to talk about your family. So, well, I have 9 brothers and sisters. They're going, wow, 9 brothers and sisters. Wow, I had no idea, for example. Those are my aunts, uncles. We all live in the same house. That's why I thought it was my family. But it was unique. My grandfather, a very unique individual. My grandmother, just a great lady. I think she was a Christian-minded individual, but never really let it on. And then when I came to this country, for example, I met my wife, Pam, who I just can't describe what she means to me. She's been everything. She's put up with a lot of my stupidity, and it still is today. Things that I do, things that I don't do. But throughout it all, she's been a real force, a real sense of connectivity. She's the one that led me to the Lord. And then so my family, I've got 2 sons, both here in Columbus, doing very, very well. They're not living in the basement. They never will. They never will. They're on their own now, but they're doing very well. One's the director of operations for Premier Aquatics, an absolute genius, and doing fish work and tank work for customer delivery people and residences. How he got there is beyond me. He's an absolute genius at putting it all together. It's amazing to watch him and listen to him speak of what he does. My other son, my youngest son, is the director of technology systems for Center for Automotive Research at Ohio State University. So we go all the way to Ohio State. I didn't put that on the list, but we have all kinds of things. But they've been very fortunate. The grandchildren are phenomenal. They're extremely successful. And I think all the things, someone asked me once, what's the greatest gift you've ever been given? I said, my family. Grateful for them, really grateful that they're doing well. So it's my obligation to me to be that mentor for them that I wasn't during my early years. I'll explain that later, going through going to school and moving on to my professional career. So it's been a very, we have a lot of fun. We get together, do a lot of neat things. So we don't get together enough because my granddaughter's up in Colorado, my husband's in Chicago, making an absolute fortune. I told her, when you get your first Ferrari, I get the second one, and you guys get the third one, and we're in line. He's extremely successful, and he worked hard, and he made the right decision. He just put everything else aside and said, I want to make a difference. And yeah, he's doing very well. He's my hero in a sense. So that's it, Chaz. Thank you.
Okay. Well, when and how did your first creative skills appear in your life? I mean, where did it come from?
Back I refer to as it was Renfrew's private school in Glasgow, Scotland. We went to a private school and terrific education. The shorts, the hat, the shirt, the whole bit. Headmaster John Kincaid. I'll never forget that man as long as I live. We'd stand up in front of class. He'd walk up. He'd look in front of us, walk behind us. If there was a spot on our shoe, or a tie out of place, or the cuffs in the wrong place, go home. Get up. But that man was I still have his report card that he made out when I was a kid. But give you a quick experience, just if I can't tell a story.
Sure.
This man walked into the room. He's very tall, about 6'8", very noble individual, silver hair, had the gown, the whole bit. We're all sitting there, and he walks in and goes, ladies and gentlemen, and then Scott's thrown. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here this morning to do the following. pulls out a cue ball, stands at the end of the table, big long white marble table, and just rolls it across the table. He looked at us and said, ladies and gentlemen, your task is to tell me why that is a sphere. That was our math class. We had a little elaborate, it can't be deductive reasoning all the way through the whole process. It can't be. However, that was the whole idea behind going through the stuff. Thanks, Chad. Thank you. But it was like that. That was part of the education. And then in world history, they had a room about as big as this. That wall was all the three-dimensional map of the world. We pulled things out and read about it. I had Latin when I was a kid. Then we got, it was just a great experience. And one of the best experiences, he caught us stealing milk bottles behind the school one morning. And out there, we got paddled to that, man. We got whacked like all because of three threatness. Because we always just went out and buy what we call the Robertson's candies, and then we get magazines and so forth. We just read them. But anyhow, that was part of the process about that whole education, I think, in my family, and it started that whole process of being able to see that there's more to life than just what I do. So.
Very good.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's very good.
For me, it is. It's absolutely. I mean, I'm continually reminded about the fact that wherever I go, I'm always reminded of the fact that, yeah, this is America. Sending in the bow of that ship, Lusitania, coming into the Narrows. It's not there now because they built a big bridge. But back then, you could kind of come through and see the empires. It's amazing. Anyhow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you have quite a list of impressive companies or organizations that you've had the privilege to work with. Tell us maybe about a few stories with some of those companies that just might be some of your best experience.
I think when I first got to design staff, it was unique. I was assigned to. I came out of design development, went up to the first floor, for example. You go through a 6-month training program, and so I passed the card there. And Homer Gassi, who was an individual at CCS, and Sid Mead, also was my instructor at CCS. They did a phenomenal job preparing us to go into industry. So I was sent up to GM, design development for 6 months, and I was shipped from there up into Chevrolet. Then all of a sudden, Bill Mitchell at that time, and Chuck Jordan, and Duntoff, and the powers that be, decided they wanted to do a whole new car platform called the e-car platform, which is now we know today is Oldsmobile, Toronto, and Cadillac, Eldorado. So they sent me from Chevrolet. I just started about the first month. They shipped me down to Advanced Concept Studios and start working on this new program called the e-car program. So they assigned me to, so he knows the story. I laugh. Every time I think about it, I'm ashamed, but at the same time, it saved my life in a sense. So Stan Weiland, who was the chief designer at Oldsmobile at that time, walked up to me and he said, boy, have a seat. Well, thank you, Stan. So your task is sit there at that chair and just draw the wheel covers for this car. Just do nothing but them wheel covers. Just draw wheel covers. And if you want to, throw in a couple door handles. Because after all, you're just starting here. You just got to learn how to do this stuff. So he leaves, and I worked throughout the night, all night long, pulled an all-nighter. I was known as a midnight cowboy from that point on. But I worked all night long, and the design studios, if you can imagine, about twice the size of a room like this. There was pull-down board, pull-down board, pull-down board. Pull-down boards, you do full-size tape drawings of what your inspiration was. So I started, after I left Stan's office, I sat down and started looking, what would be a really neat aspect of design to make this platform really, really distinctive in the marketplace. So I went to my old roots about Bugatti, the 57C. I said, oh, now that's cool. Because back in the 30s, that was a really unique machine because what made it unique was that Ettore Bugatti, I'll tell you the story about every moment, met him, just long hood, extremely rakish windshield, and a really abrupt tail section on that thing, backlight. So that would really be cool. We could make that work, man. So I started cheating, using Bugatti's inspiration and doing these tape drawings and sketches. And all of a sudden, the morning, dawn appeared, and all of a sudden, all the management came rolling in. Stan Weiland was bringing all the tour again. So pardon me the elaboration.
No, please keep going.
So they all come in. And I'm standing, I probably look like death warmed over, look like I do today, but incredible. They all walk in, and then Stan says, well, here we are. We're going to present to you, the management, the e-car program. Buick Olds Cadillac. pull down the boards. So all these boards come down and he turned white. He was absolutely livid. So Bill Mitchell and all the powers that be at that time, I think it was James Roach, who was the chairman of the board at that time, of General Motors. They all walked around the room and they went, that's it. So they picked my design. All of them were my designs, but they picked this one that had the Bugatti upper on it. Oh, just so.
It was more than hubcaps.
Oh, yeah. So
And nobody got that. It was more than hubcaps.
this is the great line is yet to come. So I get to it quickly. So all of a sudden they all leave. It's Dan Weiland calls me in the office. He was red. I mean, furious red. He said, boy, thought I told you to just sit down there and do the wheel covers and those door handles. Hey, you did, Stan. But you didn't tell me not to do the whole car. So I did the whole car. Moral of the story, he was working for me 6 months later. He was 40 some odd years, almost a 3-year veteran, and I was a 6-month veteran. Talk about resentment. Oh my goodness. But that's the whole point. The point of that whole story is simply this. When you're asked to do something, and I do it today with my client base, when you're asked to do something, I consider it a badge of honor. You overcommit, be better than your word. If someone says do A, B, and C, go to E, F, G, and H and go through the alphabet, deliver more than you're asked to do. Some people say, well, you're giving away your creativity. No, you're not. You're building relationships with individuals who understand what you represent. And what do we represent? More than wherever I go, the only thing I represent is one thing, the power of God. I want them to know that there's something different in your work. I want them to realize that when you look at my sketches, there's a spirit in them that you're not going to match. And that's not arrogance. Everybody understand? Don't mad at me. Are you quiet? No one's mad at me? Oh, you good. That's what makes it happen. When you ignite someone else's creativity, when you take the time to throw a match on their whole substance and what they represent, there's no way, there's not a check big enough in the world you could write for me. I don't deserve it, but I see it every day. And I sense it. I look on the blank sheet of paper, it overwhelms me. It just overwhelms me. What do you do with that blank sheet of paper? I don't know, but I'll tell you this. Every time I look over it, like, Lord, you're on. Not me, you're on. And if I fail, believe me, there'll be Hades to pay, you know. Terrible thing to say, but nonetheless, it is. You give it all over. It's not what you take that matters, it's what you give in return. Sorry.
Wow, no. That's a great story. More stories, everybody? More stories? Well, let's hear some more.
Yeah, that's another good one was, another strong one was that I was recently asked to do, down through the years, really privileged to be a part of the process. When I left General Motors and came to Columbus, I started a company with George Aycock's group down in the city. And I just had a seminar program and working with young people and so forth. And little did I realize that working with these young people through a series of sketch rendering skills and professional design thinking processes and the like for industry, we just work with them and say, hey, it's this, and this, and this. Look at their portfolios. And in fact, I've got, and I'm going to use, forgive the context but I've been so privileged to work with young people who are now, I just made a count last month that reminded me, was it last month? I have just over 344 young people who are design leaders in major manufacturing firms around the world. In the last 6 months, placed 19 young people in key jobs around the country. It's amazing how that all came about. But the reason I brought that up is one of my students, Scott Miller, went under Procter & Gamble. He became the director of overseas operations for pharmaceutical and healthcare products. So they brought me in, this is about 1.5 years ago, they brought me in to sit down and say, well, we need some conceptual thinking about an architectural program. We're doing a whole new concept for our world headquarters in New York. So I was fortunate to go ahead and be able to put that program together with them. The story behind the case was that I had, when they told me that the job was there, I accepted the job, and then I thought, oh my goodness, what they didn't tell me, we need your sketches in 3 days. So I delivered about just under 400 sketches in a matter of a day and a half. Then from those sketches, unbeknownst to me, I sent them down to Scott. I said, Scott, we don't have time for any fussing here. I hope we hit some targets and some nerves because this is critical. Because the task was to take my thumbnail sketches and move them up into large 40 by 60 sketches for presentation to management. So they they picked 3. Scott called me back in an hour's time and said, this is it. Fire away. 45 minutes to an hour and a half later, they had 2 of the 3 done. Sent back to them live. The last one was done, and now they're headed for building that place in Manhattan. But the director of Scott's manager called back and said, I have never in my entire career seen anything as explosive as this. How in the world did you do that? And I say this, when I give you the answer, don't take it out of context. My answer was simple: genius, pure genius. And you're all looking at me like, oh, what an awful thing to say. Think about what we represent. Genius, pure genius. The Lord Jesus Christ is the genius in the process. You give it over to him, it all came together in an instant. There was no change. There was no second thought. There was no debate. I sent them the bill and I laughed all the way to the bank. That was it. So those are 2 of several, I think, that I could think of. They're offhand, and it just continues to. I'm stunned at my age that I'm still hopefully relevant. It just, I'm grateful. It's the one word that I keep coming back to. Just a gratitude of being able to take what God has given you, the simple spark, and out of that spark, you ignite people's imaginations and their career and their wholesomeness and what they represent. We were made for a purpose. When I speak to young people, I always end it with one simple thing. Remember this all of your days. Young people, wherever you go, there are 2 things that matter in life. Number 1, wherever you go, give people you know and people you speak. I have not been. I've never had been. I wake up, my wife gets mad at me all the time. I'm sitting there, I pull a sketch pad out, so, all right, goes again. But it's a disease. It's an absolute disease. And there are times when I'm really not mindful of it. But at the same time, I do that because I realize that there are times in my career like today. You're going to be in front of people who expect certain things of you. And if you don't deliver the goods, then you fail. When I get in front of young people, they ask me questions about design, or automobile design, or product, or architecture. I have to have answers on that paper. And I practice all the time. Reveille, as always, is at 5 a.m. every day. Draw for 1 hour, every single day, for 50 some odd years. And I'm still working at it. I'm still learning. It's still magnificent. It just amazes me. Absolutely still amazes me, Chaz. I can't find other words. I'm stunned at the fact that every time I sit down and draw, I'll go back to this. I'll end it by saying this. Am I going too long here?
No, you're good. You're good.
I'll end it by stating this. I'll never forget the fact that again, Sid Mead's presence, that man, to this day, I owe a debt. A lot of individuals I owe debt I can never repay. But he went through a process, for example, that really was unique because he was mild, humble, extremely explanatory, explosive. He, to me, anybody like classical music? I mean, I'm an opera fan. Anybody love classical music? Sid Mead was to design what Mozart was to music. Sid Mead was a divine prodigy. He came out of school in North Dakota at the age of 11 years of age, traveled down to Art Center, California, showed his portfolio with his family. And his family came out at the age of 12, pardon me. The management of Art Center said, I've been down there, I've been to a lot of workshops at Art Center in California. And they came out and said, Mr. and Mrs. Mead, the great news is your son's enormously talented. The bad news, he can't take the first 4 years. He has to start his senior year. He bypassed the most difficult design school in the country. He bypassed the first 4 years. At 16, he was working for Homer Gassi, my little instructor, who could tell you stories about like you would not believe. He worked for Homer Gassi at Ford Motor Company, was the chief designer for Thunderbird. At 18, 3 months later, he resigned, started Obligado International in his studios in Grosse Pointe, Michigan. That's where we met him when he came in and taught us. I mean, the story goes on and on and on, but it's just amazing how he always had that presence about him that was extremely unique, gifted individual. And I was fortunate enough 2 years ago, I was invited by a group called out of San Diego called Star Citizen, Robertson Space Industries. And they brought me in and said, well, we got this project, we'd like to have you be involved in it. So I'd be love to do it. I said, well, what do you think of it? I said, well, my first instinct would be, if you allow me, I'd like to make a dedication to Sid's contribution to his foundation in California for cancer patients. And I said, oh, that's great. Come on in, we'll do this. So I said, well, when do I start? I said, well, at 10 o'clock, you go from 10 p.m. to 1 in the morning. I said, what? So I come in the studio, they get all the lights up, and the director's sitting next to me, and I just start, and I had no idea what I was gonna do. It's completely clueless. So all of a sudden, the mics come up, 3, 2, 1, live. So I said, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Star Citizen. We're gonna present to you JD Orr, an industrial designer here in Columbus, Ohio. We're gonna give him a problem, and you're gonna dictate the problem name. So I did not know what I was gonna do. So here I am sitting there next to him, and all of a sudden I say, hey, how are things in Tokyo? How are things in Madrid? How are things in Brazil? I mean, what? I said, yeah, you're going worldwide. I said, oh, no, nice to know. So the problem was I had to design from scratch, from the input of the audience, of all these gamers around the country, around the globe. All this, there was an object that was called an interplanetary global herbarium system that would go from orbit to orbit, planet to planet to deliver all the goods. It had to be 109 meters long, had to have 3 pods behind it that would grow foods as they went from one to another. Had to have a landing dock, had to have an escape vehicle. And I'm making these changes. I'm going through this. So all of a sudden, at the end of the 3 hours, and I'll terminate what stadium is, at the end of the 3 hours, they said, good night, I had a Q&A thing with some individuals. It was a lot of fun. Then they shut it all off. And then Mike turns to me and he goes, you want to hear something really neat? I said, I hope so. I hope so. What happened? He said, well, you just garnered the largest audience a Star Citizen has ever had. You had 16,000 people watching you worldwide. You earned for Sid's foundation $8,000. The contributions kept pouring in. I mean, I just, how can you respond to that? You respond by saying this, that's your reasonable service. That's what God gave you the gift to do, to reach others. And as a result of that program, I'm now on Twitch television once a week out of San Francisco doing Dr. Contrast in the Dream Labs with young people. I mean, that's how it all started. I mean, yeah, I said, Chaz, wow, I'm stunned. And my audience inside a year's time is growing to about maybe a little over 1,000. I finished the program on Twitch. We're switching over to YouTube, and following YouTube is even getting larger. So we're switching over everything maybe next month to YouTube directly. So I'm on all social. I mean, it's funny because every time they see me on the screen on Twitch, who's the old guy? What's he doing on Twitch? It's supposed to be a gaming thing. And it is, but amazing response. What amazes me, what stuns me about it is what I'm grateful for, is that handcrafted skills will never go out of style. You can have all manner of digital phenomenon, but there's something magical about sitting in front of an audience or a group of individuals in the design room and listen to their conversation and delivering the goods, right, Corey? There's something magical about that. Because if you go by the digital phenomenon, right away, well, we get back to it in 3 months. I get back to them in 30 seconds. And that again is that fuse that God gives you. That's that spark that separates you from the rest of the globe. It's just amazing how it all functions. So those are a couple of stories. Sorry about that, Chad.
Well, I want one more. And I know we have some car people
Yeah.
in the audience and some of you that are online with us too, that some of you that love cars.
Yeah.
You know, I've driven a lot of cars.
Yes.
And I've driven Ferraris. Okay.
Yeah.
But I've never owned one.
Yes, you like
But I've driven one, and it's my favorite car.
Oh yeah.
Close second is a Porsche Panamera, which I'm blessed to be able to drive pretty regularly. But tell us about some of those manufacturers and what some of maybe the creativity there, people you've met. If you've met Enzo Ferrari,
Yes.
I mean, those kind of things. I mean, that's the kind of people you look back and boy, that back in early Le Mans, those kind of years,
yeah.
all those great car manufacturers. Tell us a little bit about some of your favorite
Again,
car companies, especially Ferrari.
yeah, just when I was after about the first maybe 6 years at GM, I was assigned to overseas operations at Mobile. and the director worked with David Holes on World programs for the global system. So in that process, I didn't realize at the time we'd be invited to like design forums with manufacturers like Ferrari, Maserati, Rolls-Royce, Bentley, and it's worldwide. So we get to meet these guys, and I'll never forget the first time that the most unique thing about the experience in Europe was it was like a different world. Chaz, I mean, the engineering systems were different, the processing was different. The avant-garde process, for example, stretching the envelope of design was far more formidable. Less very typical or cookie cutter type. I mean, the American product line, for example, is a manufacturing process of SKUs. It's shared revenues, and shared dies and shared casting systems. And you create this very little, I don't know if people realize this, but to look at the product line today of all the domestic manufacturers, the stamping variation for programming, even for molded parts and for stamping operations, is 5/16 of an inch. That's how much difference you have in surface work. Whereas in Europe, you could draw and 3 to 4 feet if you had to. Look at some of the European, like the Ferrari Testarossa 512, a lot of wing type fender pontoon systems, a lot of deep draw. It was a whole different set of manufacturing process to work with over there. So the magic of working with them was extremely lucid. You lay down a concept or an idea, and the end zone, much further, take it up, go further. All the manufacturers were far more expansive, highly innovative, and really great to work with in terms of getting the manufacturing down. So that was a unique experience with. Tell you a quick story about the Testarossa 512. I mean, the Testarossa 512 looks like.
Had a poster of that one.
Yeah, it's just all about those grid lines on the intakes on the body side. Well, the story going through the factory at Maranello, the Commendatore, which is interesting because you know who he drove? You'll love this. Here's the director of Ferrari worldwide, right? So we're waiting out there outside of Ferrari in Maranello, and up comes it. He was chunking up the hill, right? Jeez, thank you, Mark. So into the dirt paveway, underneath the causeway, into Ferrari's factory works. Up comes steps in, down with his glasses on. He's driving a Fiat Green 1963 Fiat. And he said, "Never drive my product." Never. He never did. Never drove his own product.
That wouldn't be me.
No, wouldn't be either. But nonetheless, he comes in, so we do a factory tour, and he has a 3x5 card. Walks around, they've got the still on the stanchions, they've got the molded fabric portion of the rear 3/4 with all the strakes that had to match the door lining, right? So he comes in, he goes, "It touch, no good. We cannot have that touch." He was looking at the seams of manufacturing, and when you put a quarter assembly to a mid-cabinet assembly, there was a gap in there for the door, right? Those two pieces touched at one point. No. Back again, remolded, start again. And that's how meticulous he was. I mean, there are people in that organization, for example, 6 generations of watchmakers and foundry individuals making engines. And if you've read the Ferrari, you'll absolutely be amazed. You can eat breakfast off the floors. Each division has its own manufacturing stall. But that was a great story about Ferrari in terms of how he treated his, they loved him. He's a very dictatorial individual, but he was extremely, just pardon the expression, Hades bent on doing the right thing. It had to be perfect as far as perfection goes. And then Porsche, totally different mindset. Again, very mechanical, very methodical, extremely reliable set of circumstances, design staff, not as flamboyant as Ferraris. I mean, much more sedate. You look at the timeline of Ferraris. I had a friend in high school who had a bathtub speedster. Man, that thing was beautiful. Oh, Charlie Rice and I would run around it. We were heroes like this. Hey, that old Porsche. But you look at that machine and look at today's lineage. It's just been refined over the years. It's amazing. No big changes, but extremely dramatic product line altogether. And I've got a good friend in town who just ordered a GT3. It's a second one. Helped me put the design scheme together and want to send it over to Stuttgart, manufacturer. But again, the mindset was much more, I wouldn't say it's as flamboyant as Ferrari was, but extremely dedicated to product. They all are. And then there's Rolls-Royce. Unbelievable. Have you seen the latest one that Rolls has done, the Speedtail? Yeah, they're taking order. When you see the factory, for example, and what's the assembly process is one thing, but the craftsmanship and especially the soft trim materials. Look at the new drop tail, speed tail. They put out a letter out, I think it was back in November of last year, where Rolls-Royce is pleased to announce that they were going to announce a new speed tail format for exclusive customers, bespoke items only. The base price will be $20 million. It'll be specifically done for you. Paint, trim, you tell us what you want, make a list. We're going to take a look at this thing. They've already made three. Three individuals are purchasing. One went to I think in Italy, Como, and the other one, not two, one in Italy, one in Hong Kong, and one in California. But the beauty of it is, I don't know how they did this, but behind the rear seats, when you take the upper off, the wood grain comes into two halves, and it's all the lineage and the alignment is absolutely phenomenal. So again, the point I'm getting at there is that each facility in Europe, when I was there, were meticulous beyond belief. Now, the domestic side was the same, but because of the SKU counts and the way things are manufactured, it wasn't as luxurious as a very minimal amount of it. And that's what Jordan, one of the great things that Jordan did when he came in as the VP of design, we took the 7 divisions down to 3. Because we realized, in Chevrolet alone, for example, when I was working at Chevrolet, Advanced Chevrolet, the B car and A car platforms, which is Caprice and Malibu, it was amazing to me that for Chevrolet alone, in one product, in a GMC truck, for example, the minor truck, you know what the SKU count is for that one SKU count, manufactured parts for one truck? 740. Standard, medium, luxury. Leather, cloth, trim. I mean, on and on it went. It's 700 of them, different variations. So we just couldn't, it was not sustainable. So Jordan cut it all back to 3, Cadillac, Buick, GMC, or Chevrolet. Big difference. But it still doesn't have the same mystique as, for example, Ferrari manufactures what, six platforms now? Including the Paris Angu, the new SUV. 6 platforms. You know what the return on the investment is for a Ferrari? For Ferrari as a corporation? Now, GM builds what? SKU counts are about 3 divisions, maybe about 24 SKU counts now. Ferrari's down to 9. GM's return on the investment is 3%. You know what Ferrari's is? 94.
I'll join that. I'll
Yeah, me
join
too.
that.
I'll
take that part.
Yeah, me too. But the people say, well, it's a $400,000 mobile. Yes, it is. However, but they're so wise in what they've done that they've minimized the discount. Either you get this or you don't. That's why they're so restrictive. Talk to Mark and then Stan Ross about going through the build list. Unbelievable. And when we did the Corvette, when I was at the Corvette studio, by the way, the C8 on the road came out of our studios. That was really a great
C8 right here.
program.
30 years ago?
That started back in 1982.
82.
It took us 30 years to get there. But nonetheless, you look at the build list of a new C8 and compare it to a 488 Pista Ferrari, it's identical. Ferrari, $400,000. C8, 116. Same build. We're finally getting smart about what to do with the process. So thank you for being patient. All set?
Good. No, I love that. I love that. I love hearing about the cars. And I was going to ask you, please tell us more about the C8. I mean, when did that project first get started about the mid-engine? The C1, the C2, the C3, the C4. When did it get, was it C4 time is when they really then in the 80s when they started talking about the C8?
C8, yeah. And then that whole time frame, it actually started in that, when I came to GM design staff, I was shipped down to, I was involved from the C6 on. But the 4 actually was the forerunner of that whole process. And what the public needs to realize is that over the course of time, there was a huge battle between Zork Duntoff and Bill Mitchell. Bill Mitchell was just incorrigible. And Duntoff was an extremely phenomenal innovator. He wanted the split backlight, for example, the C2, 3 series. Mitchell wanted it, Zork didn't, sightline problems and so forth, but nonetheless, he kept harping on the fact, I said, Bill, we've got to get a mid-engine, got to have a mid-engine. So I was assigned to Corvette, and we were going to work through the day up in studios in Corvette, and we go down to the Skunk Works. in the basement, working on advanced projects. So we started this whole, anybody familiar with the four-rotor Corvette? Yeah, you have to look at that. That four-rotor, I was assigned as the chief designer of that program with Jerry Palmer. And that was the birth at that time of the four-rotor Corvette, midship engine, really all new innovations. I still have 8 patents in that thing coming out of that process with that Corvette. But that was supposed to be the forerunner for the midship program. And lo and behold, it was a time during the fuel crisis, and car manufacturer became extremely sensitive, and Ed Cole made the decision at the same time upstairs we're working on Corvair. So at that time, Ed Cole made the decision that, we had to, we were 2 weeks away from introducing that four-rotor Corvette as a new mid-engine Corvette. 2 weeks before the launch, Ed Cole came in the design staff and said, we cancel it, we're going, all the efforts going to small car, because that's the next wave of the market. So we had to drop that whole thing, but we kept going to the studios and working at night and doing things. And little by little, we finally won the battle. And when that C8 hit the road, it's a shocker. I mean, the proportions are beautiful. I think that the system is great. The engineering is marvelous. The cabriolet version is absolutely stunning. I've got a good friend down in Florida who called me up and said, hey, JD, I'm thinking we're getting the C8. And I said, what do you think? I said, well, there's no doubt. Hypersonic grade, natural leather trim, charcoal rims, and yellow calipers. So I said, I'm gonna have a hard time getting some. No, you're not. So I called GM and said, I've got a friend in Florida. They put him on the bill list. It's supposed to be wait 2 years. He got it in 2 weeks. He called me back and said, send me a photograph. He said, look at this. That's beautiful. I said, I know, not just, well, we worked hard at that stuff. Color dictates what surface work does. You get a dark color, it's evil. You get a light color, and some hypersonic gray is between a charcoal and a silver. So when it flops, it goes to really evil looking at night. It's an evil kind of a charcoal. It's vicious. So when I order mine, my wife doesn't know it yet, but when I order mine, I'm gonna get the same one. She'll love it. I had a C6. I was chief designer of C6, but I never drove it enough. So I thought, wait, now I know the C8's coming along. They're coming time. Hey, dear, guess what? You'll love this car. I said, dear, you'll love my lawyer.
Yeah. I love the Zeus bronze though.
Pardon me?
The Zeus bronze?
Yeah, it's unique. But I think that color is a bit mystical in a sense. It doesn't really show you the offsets and the plan view form and the hip shoulders and so forth. A lot of time goes into the language structure about putting these pieces together. We talk about hip, we talk about belt line, we talk about cowl line height. And when it started, when the C6 program came through, Dave McClellan and I and Jerry Palmer worked out really hard with all the manufacturers. We brought them in all around the globe. And the problem with that kind of car was it was always the H point was too high, the cowl relationship, the backlight systems, all the proportions mid to rear were just really kind of large. So we worked really hard into clad forming and hydroforming for the frame system for the C6, which meant you take a piece of steel, tubing steel, run through high pressure and heat, and you can form it any way you want. But it allowed us to drop the platform 3 inches overall height. And by using that process, expanded the width of the vehicle by 2.5 inches. So it became lower, wider, and much more competitive with the Europeans, Maserati, Corvette, et cetera. Aston still wasn't there yet, but now the C6 is in the same category. I think it's got a real presence. So just fun stuff. So again, that was a hard battle. We had to fight hard. Really had to fight hard. Quick story about the proving grounds.
Sure.
Chuck Jordan walks up to it and says, boys, we're going to show the C8 today. Hang on to your hats. So out there in the viewing platform and walking around this thing. So Bill Porter, who was a great friend of mine, the Buick Riviera fan, just a phenomenal talent. Still living in Michigan, stay in touch from time to time. So Bill Porter walks out of the tarmac and he starts doing all this stuff. He says, well, Chuck, it's this, and Chuck is this immaculate hand whipper, right? So Chuck Jordan, big presence that he was, phenomenal talent, just lost it 2 years ago to cancer. But he walked over to Bill Porter, Willie P. He called him Willie P. He said, Willie P. picked him up by the coat lapels, walked him over to the wall, stuck him against the wall and said, Willie P., I want you to remember just one thing. I'm real hard of hearing, but I've got 20/20 vision. So here again, the lesson learned was never forget that lesson. When you work with young people, You can talk all you want to. Show me. This group, 2020, we'll show you hopefully in a few minutes. We'll do a live activation. It's how the whole process works. Show me. We can talk till the cows come home. But when you prove yourself, that's different. So I never forgot that. All these lesson plans along the way. Sid Mead, Homer Gassi, Chuck Jordan. As I said, Zorak was doing tough. It's just absolutely phenomenal. I could never, ever begin. If I write a book, which I am writing, you know what the title is? You're going to love the title. The Revenge of the Pencil.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, and that's cool. Everybody else has got the little digital pad, and I work digitally, but people look at my Twitch program. The number one thing is coming out of Twitch. We love the live action. We get to see you work. You can hear the paper moving. We can watch you sweat bullets and still make it work. And you make mistakes. And again, another Sid Mead program, part of the success ratio. You've lived it, I've lived it, we're all going to live it. Make mistakes. That's where the miracles live. Ferraris. We're over in Europe. We need some new design for the 348. What do you think? You grab a paper plate. Grabbed a paper plate and went, what about this? Oh, we turned that around. That'd be beautiful. Everybody thinks it's sophisticated. Well, you have a big design studio, you've got a huge staff, you've got all the materials, you've got all the materials in the world. No, sometimes you just got to spit on the table and make it stick. And that's what happens. And most of the creativity happens that way. How do you make this? That's the mistake phenomenon we're talking about. Make those mistakes. That's where the miracles are. That's where failure matters the most. That leads to success. And young people can't grasp that. They want it instant. Easy come, easy go. That's why they call it ego. Easy come, easy go.
That's good. That's good.
That's why it's ego. People get rid of the ego. You don't matter. I don't matter here this morning. You do. You're kind enough to give up your Saturday morning. Listen to some old guy talking about swinging a stick around on your piece of paper. It's really all comes down to not about you. I've made that very clear over the years. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm embarrassed by the fact that people walk up and say, well, you were really cool. I said, yeah, well, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? Was it me? Sorry, Chaz.
No, shoot, I could listen to you for the next 6 hours, for sure. Let's move to a couch or something.
Yeah,
that might be a little more comfortable. But I know people have other things to do today, like like the Buckeyes playing this evening. Some other things that are going on. But thank you for those stories, and I grew up with a grandfather that just told phenomenal stories. So I'm one that just loves to hear stories and experiences. But let's shift gears a little bit. You mentioned where your faith came from.
Right.
Tell us a little bit more about that, and where, kind of what inspired you, and then how has your faith evolved over time?
Well, without hesitation, I came down to one lady's graciousness, and that was my mother-in-law. Bless her heart. We'd have debates all the time about spiritual matters when I met my wife Pam, and we'd sit down and have a cup of coffee, and she would very quietly just every time you get little by little, you just bleed to death. Like, okay, I give. But she would just very gently ask questions about. Well, I was not an atheist, agnostic. I just really never had that. So it's an odd. I hope I can explain this properly. It's an odd set of circumstances from the DNA process. As a child, I always knew that there was something there. I didn't know what it was, but I had a pet mouse when I was a kid in Scotland. I used to build things right outside this hole. He'd come out at night, and I'd just build it, and he'd walk through it, and I'd talk to him. It was like the Walter Mitty of Glasgow. So we'd go through all this stuff, but again, there's always something about that in my heart and mind that told me that I wasn't my own. So all that to say that when I met my mother-in-law, she was the one that just slowly but surely guided me toward what the Lord was really all about, and how important it is to have that in your life. And my wife was, she was in the same boat I was. She grew up in that household, but never really took a part of it all, or was a participant at all. So over the course of time, she was probably the most instrumental individual and helping me guide myself to proper perspective on how life should be managed. And I think she was, I always think she was an absolute angel. So that was part of it all too. And I think as my family progressed and then my sons, I think they started attendees. They moved away from it all, and hopefully we keep trying to come back to it all. But from my point of view, it came down to that. And then I'm working with Tiffany again, trying to get, being Chaz, and working with them. All the people along the way that had that same spiritual connection were just absolutely amazing. But the real heart of it all, the nucleus of it all, came about through my mother-in-law, who was just an absolutely gentle lady that understood the scripture so well. And it wasn't a Bible thumping situation. It was all by example. She lived that life, and you could see that in her. And I think that's what kind of drew me. And after a while, you give up on that debate factor. And again, another truism from that experience was that you cannot debate the truth. It's a stubborn thing. It will not go away. You cannot debate the truth. I tell young people, they ask the question, well, who do you think you are? Question. Correction. I don't think about who I am. I know who I am. How about you? That's a truthful thing that's extremely stubborn. It will not go away. You cannot arm wrestle people. So what's the moral of that whole story? Doesn't tell them what you believe in, show them what you believe in, then walk away victoriously, humbly. Pull a Sid Me. That guy, I don't think I've ever, again, I hate to go back to that. I won't. I mean, the examples that he showed us, the way he would treat certain things, the way he spoke to you, all about humility. All about humility. And I'll tell you what, he taught me, again, back to my mother-in-law. I think she taught me something about, Jim, have you ever looked up the definition of power? I said, no. I really haven't done that. She said, well, let me give you a little Hebrew lesson. I said, oh, here we go. Oy vey, here it comes. So here, let me give you a little Hebrew lesson. That the root, this is amazing to me. I hope it helps you this morning. The root source of power is the root word in Hebrew called humilia, which translated means humbleness. Genuine power is humility. The more humble you are, the more powerful you become. And I don't mean that, oh yeah, isn't that cool? That's not the point. You live your life in a sense of humility, a gratitude, gratefulness for what happened to you, what is being happened, and what will continue to happen in your life. That power will show. And it's not the power of me. It's about you. Being humble. That's why I get embarrassed every time. I say, well, you're just a nice worker. Well, you kind of cower a little bit. Yeah, I realize that, but I want people to realize it didn't come from me. It came from a power greater than ourselves. And when you turn that over to that power, there's no limit to what you can do. It's limitless. Someone asked me once to define infinity. I had a great answer. I think I did. I'll let you be the judge. To me, infinity is threefold. It's scriptural. Number one, very shortest, almost the shortest verse in the scriptures. And it came to pass. Number one. I'm going to put these together in a moment here. The second advent would be this. Suddenly, it appeared as a mighty rushing wind, and it fell upon the people. Acts 2, right? Third, now I'll put it all together here for you. Put it in order. Third one, and the Spirit moved upon the firmament, and let there be light. So, what's the analogy? When confronted with complex situations, stand and watch the Spirit move upon your firmament. Listen to the rushing mighty wind as it touches people. Last but not least, do not let it pass. Now, a lot of people say, what came to pass? Not really. When you put those three in context to me, that really says it all. And I'm reminded of that all the time. It came to pass. Don't let it pass you by. Take advantage of that moment in your life. We all have. I did. The old truck driver bit. Same thing. I didn't know what design was. So take a sketchbook to work every day, the Wayne County Road Commission.
Great story. Another great story.
I just sit down and, I took my sketchbook and there's a truck driver named Fran Russell. And the saddest thing in my life is after I graduated and got out as GM, I tried to look him up and I can't find him. I think he's passed away. Anyway, I'd sit there and I'd draw stuff and I'd have my sketchbook and he'd walk up and he'd say, "Hey, JD, what are you doing, Jim?" I said, "Well, I'm just my sketchbook, just drawing cars, having fun." I said, "Wow, that's some pretty neat stuff." I said, "I've got a sculptor. My brother is a sculptor at Ford Motor Company. Why don't you get your stuff and take it down and show Maurice what your work is all about?" I've used that in speaking engagements, and the title is this: 30 seconds will change your life. 30 seconds, that's all it took. Fran just walked away. Went to work next day. I called my brother. He'd love to have you I'd love to see your work. That 30-second conversation changed my life. Now, Fran Russell wasn't spiritual. Anything but that. But he gave me an insight into something about how this man was generous to tell me about what his brother did. And it changed my life. Another spiritual lesson. You can't avoid it. Everything's filled with it. I get upset when I go walking with my wife. She'll stop and look at some shadow thing, like a bunch of branches on the ground. I say, "Oh, that'd be a neat piece of architecture, wouldn't it?" She goes, "What? You're beside yourself." Want to hear a great answer? When someone asks you, "You're behind yourself or beside yourself?" Great response. "I know, I'm having twice as much fun." Twice as much fun. That's it.
That's good. That's good stuff.
That's been fun.
Do you have any favorite books and chapters in the Bible that you like to share that mean a lot to you?
Yeah, I think the three I just mentioned there, for example, the one that always amazes me, I go back and read it often, but that first chapter 1, Genesis, when it all began. And I go back to that and gravitate to it because I always visualize myself, and being a dreamer at heart, I always visualize, for example, and for all of us, just if you close your eyes for a moment, right? Just sort of close your eyes. Imagine this, pitch dark, completely void. All of a sudden you hear this. The sound begins to occupy space. The sound gets louder. And the firmament moved upon the face of the earth and stated, "Let there be light." Now, the reason I ask you to close your eyes, imagine yourself standing in a galaxy watching this happen. Think about that. You may open your eyes. To me, that is beyond the phenomenon. If we go back in time, we could pull the old DeLorean special, back in time thing. We can go back in time. That's the one I'd love to do. I'd love to be able to stand in a galaxy or somewhere near to watch that whole thing come about. What a phenomenon that would be. Now relate that to our craft here from the design process. Think about this. And the firmament. And the Spirit of the Lord moved upon the firmament. And the Spirit of the Lord takes over a sheet of paper and said, "Let there be light."
The imagination of
Yeah,
God.
the imagination of God. Hopefully, let there be light. What kind of light? That illuminates the audience. It already has me. Well, it gets bigger and brighter. I'm not the smartest bulb in the box, but I get there. But the illumination process is phenomenal. I mean, I always relate to that when I put on a workshop or a clinic. So again, a favorite verse that would be always amazes me about silver and gold have I none. Such as I have, I will give unto you. No, we all have silver and gold. My wife has more of it than I do, but nonetheless, that's how it should be. But I'm pretty. People ask me all the time, "You shouldn't give that away. I mean, you got to be careful. You can't do that." Well, let me tell you something. When I hear comments like, "Well, you can't do that," another great answer for that. You can write this one down, folks. You're welcome. And if you use it, just think of me. Hopefully, when people say, "You can't do that," my standard answer is, "Yes, I know. You can't do it because you're dying of cancer and you can't spell it. CANTSIR. You're dying of cancer and you can't spell it." When someone says to us, "You can't," it's not a spirit of vengeance that comes about me or anybody else. but you go out of your way to not only disprove them, but to guide them. So that whole
Cancer.
spirit, yeah. The
Cancer.
cancer, C-A-N-T-S, I hear it all the time. So, time out. You're gonna change your operandi. Don't you realize, and I've said this to several young people, don't you realize you're created in the spirit of God, in the image of God where you created. Whether you like it or not, you are his ambassador. We're his ambassador. Wherever I travel, it ain't about me. God, come on in. We're his ambassador. Now, a good ambassador does three things. Simply three things. Can I kind of just unload one here?
Unload them all.
There it is. Three things that a great ambassador does. A great ambassador, above all else, is the following. What do you expect from a solid rock? A great ambassador is a solid rock. Now, what do solid rocks do? Number one, a great solid rock is a process, it's homogeneous. It's the same without, same within. That's a great ambassador. The second trait of a great ambassador is this. That because of its homogeneous character, it withstands an enormous amount of pressure. It can take the pressure. The great third thing about an ambassador is this. It provides a means of rest. A solid rock, homogeneous, withstands pressure, provides a means of rest. Put your hand on my shoulder, rest. Come unto me, scripture. Come unto me, and I will give you rest. I am your ambassador. A solid rock, homogeneous, able to stand pressure, and providing a means of rest.
That's good.
That's God.
That's good.
It ain't me. I told Chaz on the phone the other day, we're going through a little bit of an interview. I wish I could write down, I should have documented the number of times I go through a drawing demonstration or a public speaking engagement. Some of them, where did that line come from? You talked about the I don't know. What did I say?
You've said a few things.
No, no, honestly, that's what honestly, that has actually happened. You're not there. And again, remove yourself. The best growth process in the world is to get out of your own way. You know, how many times, let me ask you a question. Don't we do this? And then all of you don't answer this honestly. I know you guys are lying. I know you are. How many times have we sat up and one said, you know, I just don't know if I can, man, the worries and the wheres of these days are just, anybody? Show of hands, please. Yeah, that's pretty, that's all. We all do that. We all do that. I mean, every morning I get up, I go through the same thing. I've got to do this, and this. But you know what the resolve to that is? Lord, be my ambassador. I need you. I can't do this. Be there. And I think the moral of the story is that how unfortunate it is, again, working with young people, I got to say this from the heart of my heart, the bottom of my heart. The desperation is overwhelming. It's overwhelming. They have no hope. They think they're lost. They have no future. So again, what does it mean to us? Let there be light. Move upon the firmament. Be that ambassador.
That's good. That's good. Let's get back to business.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the things that you feel, or again, you think young people especially, but could be anybody starting a business. What do you think are some of the most important traits for being successful?
Excellent questions, Chaz. I think, again, there's not a simple formula that's unique for an individual, but I think one of the most important things that I try to get across, that happened to me, was trying to find the gap. Where the gaps are. For example, there's a certain discipline, for example, in industrial design, what I found to be really overwhelming to me was that over the course of time, going through traveling, for example, I was GM's liaison to education for several years. and traveling the globe, putting on workshops. No one knew what design was. What is it? How do I become a car designer, right? How do I get to be an architectural guy? They didn't know what that was. So I think the first thing is to find out, for example, search your heart and find where the gaps are. In my case, the gaps were, yeah, the product was out there, the corporations were there, but no one was in between teaching creativity. Nothing was there. So I started this whole process of these workshop systems in George's office, and then that gave birth to Dr. Contrast and Dream Lab. So I think the first key that I always tell young people is find the gaps where your strengths are, and then begin to fill that. Secondly, I think above all else, be better than your word. If someone tells you to be there at 9 o'clock, be there at 8:30, not 9:30, sorry about that. Be there at 8:30. Be better than your word. If someone asks for a deliverable, if they need it by Tuesday, get it on Monday. I mean, I made a lifelong practice of that. Always being ahead of the game plan, being fully well prepared. And I think the next, yes, sir, pardon.
Susie's got something.
Manuela has a question, so
Yeah.
whenever there's a good break,
Yes. Question is where?
she'll have to unmute herself.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to know if you ever go through a creative block, and if so, what do you do about that?
Manuela, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, Manuela. Please forgive the answer. Ain't never happened.
Okay.
Let me explain why. Your question again, or if I can repeat it, is do I ever go through creative blocks? Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Sincerely speaking, I have never experienced that. And I think the reason why is because from the very beginning, the get-go, we were trained to go beyond the envelope. We stretch the envelope all the time, doing things, just letting your imagination go, whether it's right or wrong, is not the problem or not the issue. As far as a block is concerned, if you give me a subject matter, I can crank out 1,000 sketches on that in a minute. That doesn't bother me. We've been trained to see that world, and therefore the world doesn't have an trepidation in it. It doesn't have hurdles. It has what? If it doesn't have hurdles, what does it have? Bridges, one to the other. Next step, next step, next step. So I hope I'm not, please, everybody, Manuela, understand the answer?
Yes, I do. I do.
What gives you, let me ask you, here's a good one. What causes you to have that blockage?
To be honest with you, it doesn't happen that often to me. But every now and again, if there's maybe like a real pressing deadline,
Huh?
then I have to think harder.
Well, that I have experienced, but again, the answer to that one is you've got the skill set and the talent base to just say, you know what, Lord, let's go. And I think
Yes.
that's gonna be the difference. So it's nice to hear that you don't have that very often. My answer, had you experienced that often, would be to sit down with a sketchbook, and I do this almost every day. I go through what I call apathy exercises. I draw anything but cars, anything but architecture, anything but, I just do speed forms, line, shape, line weight shifts. And then all of a sudden, I could use that. Oh, I could use that. Oh, I could use that. So again, you build this file or library, Manuel, and that makes a huge difference. So good for you for realizing the fact that it doesn't happen very often. And when it does, give me a call. I won't answer it, but nonetheless.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to speak with you.
Thank
Well,
you.
this is a good time to,
Have a question over here?
Oh, no, it's actually, do you think it's people have blocks because of like fear of failure?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Is Manuel still there? No?
yeah,
Yes, I am. I am.
I think a lot of it is a fear of failure. But as I said before, and it's, pardon me, sir, your name is?
Doug.
Pardon?
Doug.
Doug? But the secret to that is, again, Manuel, I hope this will help you, is that the fear of failure, to me, is a motivator. If this doesn't work, try and, so, you know, Diefenbaker, remember John Diefenbaker, former Prime Minister of Canada? One of the greatest comments ever made was, if at first you don't succeed, he said, try and try again. Wrong. If at first you don't succeed, try and try and try and try and try and try and try again. Never give up. So I think once you get there, Doug, the point is that it's not the fear of failure that does it. It's a stigma of thinking you're locked in. Whereas that still small voice is doing one of these bits behind you, like, hey, guess what? The secret's here. It's there. I've got a whiteboard here, I explain something to you. I'm not on the whiteboard, but I get a great teaching lesson. So yeah, the failure is part of it, but we're not really failing. We're looking at certain ways to get to guide that ship to the source of the solution. So, thank you. Help answer your question?
Oh, no, I was just commenting on.
Oh, very good. So you should have asked Doug.
We're going to take a couple questions from the audience here, as well as those of you that are on virtually, and then we're going to ask JD to do a little rendering and do a little creativity for us. So, is anybody else in the room that
Any questions?
has a question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming today. I wanted to welcome you.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Your name is?
Andy.
Andy?
Andy, yeah.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
I just wanted to ask, I'm in the creative industry too. I'm a graphic and web designer.
Oh, neat.
What is your kind of relationship with like feedback? Like, you're someone that comes back to the craft. So some of my admirers, you come back day after day, 50 years. And I'm trying to think like, as I start my career, how can I make it something that I want to come back to day after day? And have you ever had, because you present for a lot of bigger companies and stuff as you progress throughout your career, have you ever felt like your work isn't appreciated, or maybe the people that you're trying to create for don't really value what goes into your process? And then how do you take feedback from that too?
Next. Sorry. What's great, it's an excellent question, Andy, and I think, hopefully this will be of some help to you. If I can repeat the question to make sure I give you the right answer. Have I ever been in a situation where there's a point in time where people don't appreciate your work, or they don't think you're worth your value and so forth? You're welcome to write these two things down. And I guarantee I'll chase you down if you don't use them. I know now who you are, and you're not gonna hide. Number one, tell your client base, you can pay me once or 1,000 times. It's up to you. Number two, you want it bad, you'll get it bad. Well, so what are we saying to that individual? Hey, you, get out of my cloud. We're gonna pull a Jagger on them. And what you're saying to that individual is, hey, you, come up on my cloud. Because you need me more than I need you. So the real essence of the question, to give a very truthful answer, I've never experienced that. And you should not, because those two key principles put together prevent a lot of causation about restriction. Here's why. We'll go back in history. When I was a young guy, Sid Mead, again, incredible. He taught us one of the greatest lessons in life. When you go anywhere you go, do the following. Do you mind if I stand? I gotta act this one out. Wherever you go, make sure you do this, wherever you go. Number one, meet your client base, get your work ready, put it up on the walls, turn to them, and say the following. There aren't any questions, are there? And leave the room. Wisdom beyond belief. Now, why do you do that? There's a psychology, Andy, I want you to hear this. Here's why you leave the room. Here's why you write those two things down. Here's why you tell your client base, there aren't any questions, are they? Then leave the room. I leave the room for about maybe 30, 20, 15 minutes, have a cup of coffee, sit back and just kind of relax and wait for the alarm bell to ring. Then I come back in. You will not believe what the first comment is when you come back into the room. Hey, JD, which ones do you like? You just reel them in. That gives you the platform to say, well, my preference is based on your input. Notice the context. I always reminded me of that great analogy. Remember Paul's appeal in the Sanhedrin? My dear Theophilus, thou hast almost persuaded me to be a Christian. Because Paul went through the litany of going through the description of what he was. You are well aware, Your Majesty, that these things take place. You are well aware that the circumstances of life are such. However, and at the end of the dissertation, what did Paul say? What did he say in response to Paul? Thou hast almost persuaded me to become a Christian. You're persuading your client to say, you know what, I'm a bad dude. And you get rid of me, best wishes. I said that to Roger Martin when I got employed at General Motors. So what makes you think we should employ you at GM? I said, very simple. You don't employ me here, I'll be a threat at Ford. That's all I said. I'll be a threat at Ford. Fine, you're upstairs, go to Chevrolet. So that help, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely.
The whole idea is to get away from the fact that, you know, we're not treated, for example, you know, when people, have I had people disrespect your work? Yeah. But you look at them, and honestly, I feel sorry for it in a sense, because what that tells me about that individual, extremely arrogant, highly egotistical. Someone said to me once, you know, well, I worked for Little Tykes, or no, pardon, it wasn't Little Tykes, it was Tupperware down in Florida. Morris Cousins was a big-time designer, right? Big name in the industry. So he invited us down to do a product design process for him. It's about, back from, maybe late 80s, early 90s. So we traveled down to Florida, where his headquarters were. So took my staff down there, and we're in the waiting room, sitting in the library room, the conference room, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour later, an hour and a half. Morris and Cousins opened up the doors. He shows up an hour and a half late. Manuel, I hope you're hearing this, because this is going to be part of the whole process. Opens the doors, steps in and says, do you know who I am? And I stood up and I said, yes, I do. You're the most despicable excuse for a human being I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. Grabbed my staff, went right back to the airport. Think about how small you have to be to walk in an hour and a half late, not say, hey, good morning, Chaz. All right, let's have your staff on board. Do you know who I am?
I guess you didn't get that contract, brother.
We got 4. Scott told me, Scott Merrill, the guy I was working, the design director I was working through, said, when you left that day, he called the whole staff in and said, who was that guy? And Scott said, that's Dr. Contrast, a good friend of mine. He said, well, he sure is. Tell him he's got the job. No one has ever stood up to me. Does that make me special? No. I'm trying to get across, Andy, is, believe me, stand for something or you'll fall for everything. Stand for what you believe. Stand for your skills. When someone says a disparaging word to them, don't come back and go like, geez, you know what? How come you come right back with a still, gentle voice and say, could you explain that for me? I can improve this. How can I do this better? What's that telling that person? Don't arm wrestle with Andy, he'll win. Because people, I hope I can say this properly again, and this is not a disclaimer, people love to destroy you. They love to. So what's the solution? Sorry, destroy them first. Just destroy them first. When they ask you certain questions, for example, well, you know, we go back to the basic thought. If I hear it all the time. I hope this is the third thing you write down. If I were you, time out. I hear, if I were you, if I were you, if I were you. You ever heard that comment? Anybody? If I were you, here's your answer. Very simply come right back with, well, I'm not you, and I'm thankful for it. Again, to me, that's divine arrogance. If I were you, if I were you, if I were you. Be honest. And again, if they come back with any contention at all, just do this. That's all you do. Give me that thing back. That solves every problem in the world. And you know well, if someone contests you, hand them a stick. Show me. Show me. You've already spoken big words. Prove it. If you can prove it, you win. And by the way, pardon me, folks, it's not a matter of winning and losing. Winning and losing has nothing to do with this. So what's the end mission? Praising and giving everything to God. Lord, you won. Jeez, you've never lost. Talk about being undefeated. Thousands of years, undefeated. Can you imagine that? My formaldehyde's holding up pretty nicely, but I'm not that old yet.
Well, let's don't have you sit down. Let's transition.
To
Let's
this?
get your chair moved. Well, however you best are gonna do this,
Yeah, we just kind of,
give us an example.
all right, example.
Let
If
the
you wanna go
creative
in-
juices start to
if you wanna
flow.
gather in, come on around here, guys. You wanna come on in? I just brought some gear along here.
Pull up
Come
pull
on
up
in.
chairs, yeah.
This will kind of be hopefully the culmination. When Chaz invited me to do this, come on in, gang, please. When Chaz invited me to do this, that would be kind of a nice little feature to explain the fact that we've talked an awful lot about what we do and all begins to happen. But I think one of the nice things about hopefully being here today is to show what the process really is. So went home that night, back up Thursday, and said, it'd be kind of nice. Let's pick something. Let's pick an icon in time that made a significant difference in the history of automobile design. And at that stage of the game, there's no question, Bugatti's 57 Type C. So I'm gonna do a retro piece here to bring this into the generation of what Bugatti would do today. But I want to show you, for example, day-to-day processing, how this whole operation of being creative, if you want to call it that, or spitting on the table, what it looks like. Number one, you pick up an icon. Come on in, gang. You pick up an icon, for example. If you look at that 57 C-type Bugatti, simple, long hood, short deck, short coupling in the back. So, good. So what it looks like is this. We're going to do what I refer to as a benchmark theme. We're going to break it down in essence. What's the essence of that shape? How did they get there? Well, it looked like this. They started here, went to this, then went to that, then went to this. That is a Bugatti. Now that's called an empathy study. The empathic process is, look at the cockpit, there it is. Short tail, return, fender form, front end. That's called an empathy. Okay. Be quiet here. Make sense? All right. So now, how do you translate that? Well, there's the empathy. That's the spirit form. That's the architecture. Now, what does it look like when you turn around and give it life? You give it a ground line. Draw that through. Notice shoulder. Everybody, shoulder. Oh, by the way, everybody hands up. Now this, ready? When I go through, please just follow me. Ready? It has nothing to do with this demonstration, but thanks for doing it.
Where's the humility in that?
Anyway, no, it did. It comes down to line weight. Notice, the harder you clap, I put this across to young people, but the louder the noise, that means line weight. The magic of line weight, thick and thin. Do you realize that light source is in the line weight? When you draw a thick and thin line, light source is embedded in it. God put it that way. He created it that way. So when you do this whole idea of volume, the thing's closest to us, we're showing him over here. All right, let's get this guy rolling. Ready? Now I'm going to take that spirit form and put it into context. What this Bugatti 57 C-type is what it looked like in this generation. So now it's this. You lay down the wheels. You count them out. Go back in. Lay down the ground line. Pick up that same form. Go back in through here. I just channel the sketch.
I've heard that sometimes you should draw things upside down.
Done that? Very good, nonetheless. There's a translation, see it?
Mhm.
Form. Cabin, hood, fender line. Form. Hood, fender line, etc.
Can you hold that up for the online people?
Pardon me?
Can you hold that for the online people?
Okay, here's number one. Oh, we're not done yet.
I know, but it's still good.
There it
It's
is.
still very good.
The upper piece is called an empathic study. That's a basic structure of the 57. Then the one beneath that, the pencil sketch, is a translation, what it might look like today. Now let's take it a step further. Ready? So I get these guys to line up here. Now, here's the fun part. Now we're gonna really cheat. Oh, you said a terrible word. No, I didn't. That's part of the whole process. Learning how to do, to me, the whole visual world is predicated on, yeah, fundamental truth, but man, it gets more honest the more you cheat. No, you do. I'll show you in a moment here. This little pace here, we're gonna take that whole form now. What does it look like from another view? Well, let's do this. Notice, keep it light until it's right. That little line right there tells me the width. Now that line comes up and down. Let's get that fender line in there. Just gonna come back in through here, drop in there, roll back in and do that. Bring it right through. Take that line right down into that. There's that fender essence right there. Helping? We're gonna take that shape and put it in perspective. I'm gonna come across, create the width, take a center line, back in. And don't blink, you'll miss it. This is so much fun. That's great. Helping, not the sketch, but the helping gang. All right, let's put the line weight in place here. Now, let's put the cowl in place. Let's get that second drive line in there where the upper is. Windshield. Oh, cool. There it is. Helping gang. Pardon me making a lot of noise. It's fun. Helping? Now, let's get this guy down. Whoa. Let's bring that into play. Bring that into play. Let's get that shape. Let's get this sway line in there. Draw through it, pick it up, kick it back. That whole shape, it tells me now that whole shape is now being kicked in. It comes section wise. I'll draw a section in a moment here. As far as so good, you all right?
Yeah.
Center line of wheel. I send sketches out like this all the time. Never complete. You know why? Very simple answer. Very simple answer. Let your clients see how you think. And therefore, they cannot debate the truth. They can come back with, shouldn't that fender be a little bit? Yeah, that's great. You're a genius. Doesn't bother me. That's how you want it to look. Great. Put that weight in there. Draw through it. Pick up where that large far side fender is going to be. Just enough of that sneaking in right there. That little kick right there gives me that little kick right there. Out. Now, ready? Now the fun part begins. Part of detail. That comes into play. That shoulder gives me that comes right through. Now this comes into play. I drop that in, goes over that form ties into that form, that gives me that big spoon up front. Oh, is that cool or what? See all right? Good? Let's make it a little more radical. Make sure it's Bugatti. Done. That catwalk, this shape comes right through and forms that fender form and runs right through the shape. Up again? Very quiet.
So what did the engineers say when they measured?
Marvelous.
You got to meet Bugatti himself.
Pardon me?
You got to meet Bugatti himself.
Yes. Well, the son, not the elder. A little bit of glass graphics in here. This guy's short, would be all right.
It's always fun watching somebody draw when you don't see what they see until you see it.
Good thing you do.
Mm-hmm.
Try to wrap this up very quickly here.
Did other people in your family have creative tendencies?
Yes, they do.
Oh.
They're smart enough to get out of the business.
Oh.
They're they're much wiser than I've ever been. Let's give this guy a little bit of lighting magic here. You're not gonna see much, and it's interesting form. This is not gonna happen on this side. You're gonna see maybe about that much of that shape right there coming in off that fender. Because this car in the plan view is extremely strong plan view. So, all set?
JD, how broad does your skill or your artwork go beyond cars?
Oh, I've done watercolor, pastel painting work, fine art stuff, and it's all over the place. I mean, I change discipline from time to time for that very reason. I mean, this is second nature to me, and I'm not being critical of that, but very much second nature. There are watercolors and different discipline altogether, some pastel work, etc. In fact, if you take my business card, if you go to my website, drcontrast.com, on there you'll find myself on Twitch, YouTube, Instagram. You'll see some of the work I've done. So it's been diverse. For that reason, I just keep it for a practice benefit, to stay fresh all the time. So hold on, okay, all set? Answer your question, Susie?
Yes. I wondered if it helps you stay fresh to get out of one line and
Oh,
expand
absolutely.
into others before you go back.
No doubt. Always does. Let's put a little bit of graphics in here and we get out of this thing.
So do you have a favorite car or can you pick?
No, not really, Corey. I mean, it's just, depends on the marketplace or the bend you're after. You know, sometimes it's luxury sedans, coupes, etc. Depends on the category, luxury, element, base level, etc.
I was gonna ask you what maybe your top 5 car projects were that you created.
Oh, geez, Corvette, Firebird, Pontiac, Ferrari, 348. I mean, Porsche, it's a variety of them. So a lot of distinction here. Just gonna put this thing in here, get this wrapped up.
gaudy highlights.
What's yours quiet here?
I didn't have a good thought. I was, maybe I should just, I wondered, have you ever had carpal tunnel? Your hands are so busy all day long from 5 a.m.
No, they're just beautiful.
Praise God.
I've never had that
You
problem.
never,
So far,
ever
so
did.
good.
Yeah.
So far, so good. Well, gang, I'm about to enter the twilight zone. Been there all my life, so I should change now. I hope this has been of some help to you to see how the process operates. This goes on in design studios all over the place, whether it's architecture, product design, or whatever. It's just gonna do this, we'll separate the ground plane just a bit here.
You listen to music or anything while you're drawing ever?
No, not really, Chance. I mean, I just focus everything out. It's all concentration here. Lord, help me out. So far, I think he's doing it this morning. So far, anyhow, let's get these cleaned up a little bit more. So I'll highlight there. Yeah, this is what it's worth. Better interior trim. And notice how I'm staying inside the lines. Just being Toyota. Last but not least, one last touch up here. Magnificent.
Flip it around, flip it around.
Well, the question is, how long did that take?
How many years have you been doing it?
That precisely, oops, is that all right?
Don't bring it
A little bit closer. There we go.
See that okay?
Mhm.
There is a trilogy of what the spirit form would look like, the empathy up on top, the basic structure, the sketch below the elevation study of what that group might look like in an elevation study, then last but not least, what it might look like in perspective. Being in Bugatti, some of the earmarks of that product line, and the answer to the question, you're right there. Absolutely correct. 52 years. Some people will say, well, it took about 3 or 4 minutes. 52 years. Reveille is always at 5 a.m. Was the best of times, was the worst of times, was the winter of my great content. Notice, not discontent, content, peaceful. Lord, have mercy on my soul. I'm here to serve you. Just whatever takes place. If you make a mistake, I won't tell anybody. If I make a mistake, promise you won't either. So nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a joy to be with this morning. Any questions at all? I'll be happy to field some. Anybody? On the
Anybody
web?
online?
That's fantastic.
Is there anything out there that recently that you've seen that you've just really been like, wow, that is a great design, like just something fresh and new?
Yeah, I think in all honesty, Doug, I think it's the Porsche GTR 3 series, simple as it is, very profound, a lot of elegance in that. I tell you what, I think I've always been a Bentley fan. The Flying Spur, just enormously powerful, great machine that I've always admired. Because it's so, here's a key to it all. I think to really be talking about these things, I think what's one of the great aspects of it all is that everything that has a real lasting impression upon you, true or false, folks, isn't it true? Simplicity always wins.
That's right.
Simplicity. I mean, it's like, I've got, my wife criticizes me, I've got this classic British charcoal double-breasted suit, right? Banker stripe. My closet pretty narrow, but I've got I just pick out what I like. That was a tweed, British tweed, it's simple stuff. But you don't go out there and buy a Walmart plaid special to go with your banker's striped suit. You match it. Simple. It's simple. It's timeless. I've had that thing I haven't changed. By the way, my weight hasn't changed in about 40 some odd years.
Jealous of that.
And so am I. No, but I mean, I just keep active all the time. I think that's a secret of my success. At my age, like I said, I'm still fascinated by the fact that I'm hopefully somehow relative or relevant. So, anybody, please, questions?
I've been blessed to see some of your scenery, especially the ones of Scotland and ponds and the
Oh, yeah,
castles and ponds and the
Dylan Dunham?
watercolors and things. But do you ever draw people?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I've done portrait work and I've done a lot of, I've done things for individuals that design staff and their families. I'm like, yeah, I still do that. Anybody's interested, if I can say this, Chaz, or not, but I take commissions. Anybody's favorite cars or boats or machines, or whatever, I'm happy to do that as well. So I stay busy doing those kinds of things as best I can. Anybody else, please feel free.
How would you describe the difference between Lamborghini and Ferrari?
It's like $300,000.
Yeah. Beyond that, thinking about design.
That's a great question. Again, pardon, your first name was?
Brian.
Hi, Brian. I think the thing that, the aspect there is very unique. I think Ferrari's history has played into its value, and they've always been involved in motorsports and competition. Lamborghini has not. Great product line, but if you realize, for example, if you purchase a Lamborghini Aventador today, or a Murcielago, or some of the V series that they're coming out with now, it's a great product, a $400,000 coupe. Now you purchase that, if you bought an SF90, for example, Ferrari, at the same price level, a year from today, you'd sell your Ferrari for about $2 million. You'd sell your Lamborghini for about 140,000. So it's the retail value of what that man established is just overwhelming. When you look at things like the 250 LMs, for example, that Steve McQueen auctioned off last year, you see what that price went? Sotheby's? This 250 LM went an auction at Sotheby's in London, $28 million. And imagine, Steve bought that car, I think, from the factory for about 19,000. Not bad. Anybody else? Please, feel free.
Yeah,
Go ahead, online.
can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So I'm an artist as well. And through this wonderful casting here, the spirit, what I got from is balancing fears and failures, growing near in spirit to defines one purpose and success. When I get out of my way and I let God work, things tend to work. Lately, learning and growing, gravitating towards divine engagement with clients and being the light. So that's what I got. But when I get in art, you've actually inspired me to draw. I actually did a drawing while I was on the phone while we were on this. My pencil was going crazy too. So I want to thank you for that, because that's my way of unplugging and receiving spiritual visions. My abilities in art are in scenery, but mainly spiritual sceneries and family. Outside of that, I can't draw anything. So I just wanted to say thank you for inspiring me. There were so many things that came to mind, like the vision. You know, when you mentioned the Statue of Liberty, you said, "This is America." It signified with me when my breakthrough began to happen in conviction through making a choice to follow Christ. Mm-hmm. That was my Statue of America, or Statue of Liberty, right? This is America. This is freedom. This is the promises that God gives us. Still don't have it all together, but now not being the rock that's built up on the sand, and now building my foundation on that rock. You mentioned that rock. That rock is where I've made many mistakes. right? But it's now admitting these mistakes and then reaching out to the noble community. And people that not tell me they love me, but they show me daily.
Right.
And it's so inspiring now to be receiving the visions to learn and grow. I never thought that life would be anything like it is today. And sometimes it's a little overwhelming, but I wouldn't trade it for nothing.
Right. Right.
I just wanted to thank you for inspiring me, sir.
Well, it's really the other way around. Listening to your story, Dustin, it's inspiring to me to know that you've captured that vision, that audience, and that direction in your life. And it wasn't me. You've already had it captive and resident. So I'd encourage you to go on. I think you mentioned something about foundations and how you began. That was your foundation for finding Christ. And I think I can give you a quick relationship. That same thing for me, even though it was the advent of coming through the Narrows and seeing New York City and being in, this is America. But I think the thing that, one aspect that as a result of all that over the years was that the deeper your foundation goes, the higher you'll build your structure. So I think that's what you found. You found the fact that there's a foundation there, right, that really has begun to put a bedrock into what you see in your life. And then that platform will increase immensely. You can't do it without it. So thank you for inspiring me. It's an honor to be here, and an honor to meet you. And one little note, if you give up, I know who you are. I got you. Thanks,
Thank you so
much. Much appreciated. Anybody else? Manuel, are you still with us?
You know, the thing, JD, that intrigues me is that you take this, I mean, only thing I can draw is like the house alongside of the road.
Me too.
But, you know,
You see there.
this process here, along with some of the other stuff you talked about, applies to everything. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Andy and Corey, myself, you know, Chaz, I mean, you know, if we're going to pitch somebody, you know, to work with us or do something like that, and obviously taking some of the great stuff you talked about before, this is the same thing.
Right, it is.
You know,
It is.
I'm not drawing cars, but you know, I'm putting together what it is that I do and I'm building into it.
Mhm.
And then that goes, and then you take the stuff you talked about before, it's kind of like, here's what we have,
Right.
you know, now, what do you want to add to
Here's the
it, you know?
genealogy.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like this is what it's gonna cost,
Mhm.
because this will provide the value to you, provide the value to what we're serving here.
Right.
But then, you know, kind of like, you have any questions, or, you know, what else do you want to add to it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, then
Yeah,
the
you can
price
add
starts
into it.
going
Yeah,
up.
absolutely. That's excellent observation, Mike. And I think that's a well-stated commentary about the whole idea. Everything I've ever dealt with, and whether it's the business world or financial world or whatever we're dealing with, it all comes back to basic building blocks. You know, you see the essence of something, you build off of that. There's nothing, I think I had a great, again, another mentor at Design Stuff. His name is McCann. It was just an incredible individual. One day we're going out to the proving grounds to see the new product line. And Matt, as we're driving along, he said, "Hey, JD, we passed this big, huge junkyard, right?" I said, "Hey, JD, take a good look at that stuff." I said, "Well, what do you mean, Matt?" He said, "Yeah, just take a good look at it." Maybe about 4.5 miles later, we ended the thing. So what'd you think? I said, "I don't know, what did you think?" So I just want to let you know, that's where all your stuff ends up after it's all done and used. The lesson was, nothing's temporal. Nothing's permanent. That's right. You start with a basic building block. And I think that's the thing that I've always tried to be, even with architecture, interior space, product. What's the essence of the benchmark? What's your heritage? How did Procter & Gamble begin? What were some of the key things that you built upon? Then let's take that piece and begin to magnify it out. So, anybody else?
So what were the three things? I know the last one was perspective.
This is empathy,
Okay,
the elevation translation,
okay.
and the perspective study.
I was trying to take what Mike said about
Yeah.
presenting our business or plan or idea, empathy,
Mhm.
and then translation,
Elevation translation.
elevation, translation,
Then
and
put it in
perspective.
perspective. Another way of looking at it is this: empathy, the feeling you have or the emotions you have with your client, being empathetic with them.
Setting the groundwork.
Number 2, establishing a ground plane.
Yeah, okay.
Number 3, putting your thoughts into perspective so they can see it.
Nice.
You're right, Mike. That's exactly what happens all the way through. Anybody else? You're very quiet here. Anybody?
No, but thank you so much.
Yes.
It's not time to say anybody want to.
Oh,
We want to take
sign
a
it,
group
yeah.
picture. We want to take a
Yeah.
group picture.
Don't stop, keep going.
Justin, we'll introduce you. We'll make an introduction.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's some things, by the way, over the table, there's a little 5x7 car with GT40. Please pick one up when you leave, and that was my business card. One
Can
of
we
the
hold those in
formations,
the
which is shown
picture?
inside, and the other one, Dr. Congress, it's a learning program.
Can we each get those and hold them in our picture up front?
Hold on a minute.
Okay.
There you go.
Wow. Wow. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, JD.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, JD.
Hey, I love you. Thanks
I
very
love
much.
you.
Nice.
I like it this way, heart to heart.
Oh, hey, heart to heart. There you go. There it is. That's
There
good.
we go.
Pulse to pulse.
Thank you to our virtual audience. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you were blessed by this presentation this morning. And if you'd like one of these, one of JD's creations, we'd love to connect you with one in the future. So,
All right, let's do it.
shut it off.
Everybody, yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks very much, everybody.